Coming up on Gamers Week podcast. All right, next up, Skydance is producing the live-action Eternal Champions movie. Huh?
Well, think about it as if you're an executive at Sega. You made $1 gazillion from Sonic the Hedgehog. It's the most successful thing Sega has done in forever. You need more of that because you got used to that giant bonus you got. So you need more of that.
Eternal
So
Champions?
what properties do you have that you could make into a movie?
Streets of Rage.
Streets of Rage. Shinobi. Shinobi. You could do a Toe Jam and Earl movie and people would eat it up.
We're going to do Wish.com Mortal Kombat, okay?
I don't know. This is even worse than Wish.com. Is there like a tier below that, you know?
Timu?
Yeah, I would say Timu or Shein. Rhythm's gonna get you.
Rhythm is gonna get you. Rhythm is gonna get you. Rhythm is gonna get you tonight.
Can you feel the rhythm of the night?
Until the morning light. All right, so I'm looking at Twitch. It says it's unstable, but OBS says everything is fine.
Unstable, like it's a bottle of rosé and a tub of cookie dough away from a breakdown?
That's great. Yes, probably. All right, if you guys are ready, we can start this.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right.
We are ready.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. How's it going?
He pulled out the Carol Baskins. I love it.
Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 130, and today is Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. My name is Donnie G. Retro, and I will be your host this evening, but as you can see, I am not alone. My first co-host always knows where to find a guidebook, not because she gets lost easily, but because she has better things to do than to watch you stumble about. Ladies and gentlemen, say good evening to Blue Williams, Writer's View. Blue, how are you doing this evening?
Life is too short to walk around going, where the am I supposed to be?
I agree. I don't like it either, so we're on the same page. And my second co-host is currently working his way through the How to Cope With self-help books and is currently on How to Start a Podcast with People You Hate. Everybody, say good evening to Ryan Payne, a.k.a. Retro Game Brews. And Ryan, how is that book working out for you?
Well, I think I wrote the first one, which was How to Start a Podcast with People You Hate. But now I'm just reading the How Do You Cope Having a Podcast with People You Hate. And this is actually going to be my second go at that. So I should be an expert behind that too. But yeah, we're getting there. 130 episodes. Still hate you both.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our reviews, reactions, and requests. At Retro Monster says, people who say reviews don't matter are lying. When a movie or game comes out and gets universally panned like Borderlands, you take notice big time. You may still like the thing, but the reviews affect your perception of it 100%. I will tend to agree with that. I'm still going to see it, even though I can make my own judgment on how the movie looks. But yeah, a lot of the times I don't pay attention to the critics, but in this case, I think it's kind of hard not to.
But let's say like Golem. If the critics had all said it's amazing, you probably would have tried it by now. Or Ryan would have at least.
Yeah, I think Ryan would have. Me, not so much.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. But because everybody said, oh, it's crap, we're like, oh, well, I guess we won't try it.
If it's not Scottish, it's crap. At Gaming and Gain says, we were a VHS family. I didn't know a single person who owned a Betamax, but I remember seeing the small tapes at the local store and thinking they looked goofy. Granted, I was 6 or 7 at the time. I don't think I've ever seen Betamax commercially available, like in stores or anything like that. I had a friend that his parents had some of them, but that's pretty much the only place I've ever seen them.
You see them now, interestingly enough, a lot in antique stores.
I was just about to say that's the only place I've ever seen them is like a weird rando yard sale or maybe like antique stores. But I never saw them back in the day.
Nope.
Which is also funny to me because I don't know how many times I've gone into an antique store and I said, hey, do you guys have anything like video game related, even like Atari and ColecoVision and stuff? And usually the responses I get, well, that's too new. I was like, you've got VHS tapes from Disney in the 90s. So don't tell me that Atari games are too new.
And last but not least, at GoldenEye 1971 says, listening to episode 129 and the top 10 worst video game movies, fun fact, 5 of them were directed by Uwe Boll.
And when he posted that, I was like, you know what? I believe that. I 100% believe that is true. It's a weird flex, but okay.
I didn't have to look it up because it was intuitive. Right?
No, I do not question the accuracy of that.
Live your life so that if what you do for a living, people go top 10 worst of all time and you direct, or you're involved with half of them and people don't go, yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes sense.
Retro in the chat says, honestly, I thought it'd be a higher number. Give him time. He's not done yet. He's not retired yet.
I mean, how does that make you feel knowing that you are responsible for over half of the worst video game adaptation movies there are?
Apparently, no regrets. That's how it makes him feel.
I'd say his bank account's probably not having any regrets either.
Probably.
All right, let's move on to our patron shoutouts.
All right, well, we couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. B&T Zilligai, The Mad Milkman, Seven Castle Forest, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, Frank Grande, Love Retro BTW, Steven San, Ramboski, Terry Kinnair, Doongie Forever, A Gill 2020, Ducks in Disguise, Don't Make Me Pull Over This Car, Sir Coffee of House Blend, first of his name, Hybrid Divide, Maddo1606, You Fall Before Me, Davey PGH, the Red Ox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Zach Huge Thanks, Number One Blue Sick Boys fan, John Baran, Sassy Sony, Evo Lust, Rai Secret Best Friend, Mega Retro Man, Gamatroid, Maura Deeb, Michael LeKite, Emo-esque, Bill Tucker, the Real Retro Game Brews, Fruitcakes Them, Pickled Pepper, Ducks with Thick Thighs, Wizard of Zardoz, Bobson Dugman, Loudmouth, and Retro Blast Pad. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. You gain access to our bi-weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/GamersWeek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
You're muted.
Thank you, Uncle Ryan. And now let's move on to our headlines segment.
Finally, somebody was muted.
Was it you?
And it happened on the live Twitch show. So there's no refuting this. There's no editing it out.
Well, wait a second.
I mean, I could still edit it out. I won't, though. But
I was muted on Zencaster. I was not muted for Twitch stream. So if you go back and rewatch it, it'll still be still talking. Yeah. Ricky said, we heard Donnie. Retro says, I heard him, though.
Damn it.
All right. This headline segment is sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic, family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. Right now, they're playing through Wii Sports and Warbirds. Visit them at retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes.
Wii Sports was such a game changer when it came to gaming in the early 2000s, right?
Correct.
It brought people back into the living room. It brought people more fun. And everybody and their mother was bowling or golfing. The boxing one was not my favorite because I always got really tired because it was two hands and like I really stunk at it. But
Not used to using both hands?
no, it's just not it's usually a couple of fingers. But yeah, I will say that there are a few games out there that just have such a huge impact on gaming and kind of the overall landscape of gaming itself. And Wii Sports, I think, definitely falls in that category, which is funny to say because it's a pack-in game, right? More or less for a console that everybody was basically saying that this is like the stupidest thing that's come out. And it just sold like absolute gangbusters pretty much overnight and brought people back onto the gaming side. It wasn't just something for hardcore folks. It was something for the masses. So
I think some of Nintendo's best games have been pack-in games.
Oh, 100%.
that's true. Yeah. No, if you, sometimes they do stack the deck a bit though. When they start to recognize that a game's doing well, they're like, oh, I don't think we'll make that the pack-in game.
Yeah.
So like Donkey Kong Country becomes a pack-in game for the Super Nintendo.
Well, but before that, it was Super Mario World.
Right.
Which was amazing.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got Tetris for the Game Boy, and you've got Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo. And
So what you're saying is Nintendo is living up to the whole thing where the only good games on a Nintendo system are first party.
no.
I wouldn't say that. That's not specific.
But I think they did realize that some of their best-selling games, sort of, are their pack-in games because you notice they don't do it now.
That's a good point.
They don't do pack-in games?
Yeah, they don't.
You can buy like special bundles of the Switch with Mario Kart or stuff like that, but that's not how it debuts, really. You just buy the Switch, and then they make you buy all the first-party games on the side because they know they'll get extra sales that way.
Right.
Well, then I'm interested to see what happens whenever the Switch 2 comes out. Like, will they fall into that? Will they follow the whole, we're not going to bundle this. You buy the system, you buy these games that are available, yada, yada, yada. Because, I mean, that in a business sense, that's smart, right? Now that they know that Nintendo is at the top tier, God tier, we don't need to pack in games. We know that you're going to buy them. So we're going to get that extra money out of you.
Yep.
So first up in our headlines, if performance woes weren't enough, a new censorship controversy has embroiled Black Myth Wukong just ahead of its release. The controversy was sparked by a guidelines doc sent to content creators that, if agreed to, prohibits streamers from mentioning what amounts to an absurd list of hot topics. The guidelines were sent to content creators as a Google document attached to the email containing the game key. It said the following regarding Black Myth Wukong streaming guidelines. Do's: enjoy the game. Can't do it. Do not insult other influencers or players. Do not use any offensive language or humor. Do not include politics, violence, nudity, feminist propaganda, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. Do not use trigger words such as quarantine or isolation or COVID-19. Do not discuss content related to China's game industry policies, opinions, news, etc.
They really don't like you talking about China.
Yeah, well, and there's a couple ways to look at this. This may just be the studio trying to avoid getting in trouble with their government as they release it in the West.
True.
So they just may have decided to send something out that is not going to leave anything to chance. But ironically, by saying, don't talk about these things, they've gotten far more coverage about these specific things, even when none of them have anything to do with the game.
It's the Barbra Streisand effect, right? Where, she said, take my house off of Google Maps, and then everybody looked up her house after.
What's so special about Barbra Streisand's house?
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of the effect here, right? If you draw attention to something by saying you can't use this or can't do this, you're creating your own controversy. part of me wonders if that's part of the point, is that they want to create some buzz or some hype around it. But
I don't think they needed to for this game.
yeah, I mean, there was like 2 million active players at once.
Yeah, it's like, if I'm recalling it correctly, it's the largest Steam debut that's ever been.
Oh.
And this game is, what did somebody call it? Like a soft cultural export from China that was going to let the West in on their culture and educate the rest of the world about Chinese culture and Chinese history. And the government is doing all kinds of unprecedented things, like allowing it to be covered on the state channels like news show and that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very big deal over there. So I think that they did not need to do stuff like this because they had enough interested eyes on it anyways. And also the rest of the world, just because the Chinese video game industry is kind of a mystery. We don't see much from it besides like mobile games and what's the one gacha series? Somebody in the chat will know what I'm talking about, but the free-to-play gacha series anyway. But you can't even talk about that. You can't even talk about technically how excited you are to see more from the Chinese AAA game sector because it's prohibited. You cannot discuss China's game industry policies, opinions, news, or whatever.
Do you think this is just them kind of overextending because of the fact that it's based on deep-rooted Chinese culture and that it's very sensitive to them, that kind of topic, and they're just trying to say like we know like some people can kind of do this and be jerks and whatnot, and this is very sensitive to us. This means a lot, our culture, so we don't want you to do anything bad with it. So is that?
Maybe if you're looking at it like a best case scenario.
Right.
Okay.
But things like feminist propaganda. I mean, that's kind of in the rest of the world, the Western world, feminism is not propaganda. It's the way the world is now. Fetishization. Right. I mean, are they afraid their monkey prince is going to become a target of the furries and they're going to do fan art about him? I mean,
100%. Yes.
That's going to happen anyway.
Right. And that, to your point, that's going to happen anyway. All of these things will happen anyway. And to me, like if they sent this out to people who were getting like beta testing, or they were getting an advanced copy because they were a content creator or part of the news, and said, hey, we've got some guidelines that we'd like you to follow as somebody who's receiving a free copy of this game. They do that all the time, it sounds like, for the most part, right? So I would be a little less, I guess, perturbed about this, but they're literally saying streamers, anybody who streams this is not allowed to engage with the content the way they want to. And to me, that kind of takes away the whole point of streaming, right? The idea is that when you're streaming, you're yourself, you get a chance to experience the game in the ways that you want to, and what you talk about is no one else's business, because we happen to live in a country and many countries around the world where freedom of speech is protected. So what it sounds like to me, though, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, the don'ts could result in you getting some kind of consequences, like maybe banned or something like that. Is that right?
I don't know. Probably
Okay.
You're getting blacklisted from future games from them.
Sure.
I can't imagine. Well, actually, I can, because if they give you a Steam key, right, they can track that key, who has the ownership, which account registered it, and whatnot. So if you fail to adhere to their policies and their guidelines, you're in the middle of playing it. Next thing you know, disconnected. You can't get back onto it. Okay, no harm, no foul, because you didn't pay for it. But I don't know how they would keep track of just like a regular streamer. I don't think their reach can extend that far if they can say, oh, this streamer, RGB Brews, is talking bad about China and whatnot. And, well, we know he's got this Steam key. Let's go ahead and cancel his thing. I don't think their reach is that far.
Okay.
Webhead in the chat, sorry, real fast, said Genshin Impact. That was the game I was trying to remember the name.
There you
Genshin
go.
Impact.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, and if they don't have the ability to do that, then I guess what I would say is big old middle finger to them and say, I'll do whatever I want. Thank you very much.
Whatever. I do what I want.
It is weird because there are people out there who would be like, well, I'm not touching this game. It probably has COVID on it. Like, everybody knows somebody like that.
Of course.
But those people probably aren't getting Steam keys anyways. So to put this out, and to clarify, it went to streamers. It didn't go to journalists. So when journalists have reviewed the game, it was not having to do with these guidelines. But this just seems useless. And then, like we already said, now you're drawing attention to your game for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
Especially because in a normal playthrough, probably none of this would have come up anyway. There's no reason to bring up any of this.
All right, next up, Skydance is producing the live-action Eternal Champions movie. Huh? The game was originally published by Sega for the Genesis in 1993, and the story revolved around a tournament to determine who the new Eternal Champion would be. Rip-off. Characters from the past, present, and future were brought together to fight until one emerged as the victor. Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom scribe Derek Connolly will tackle the script for Eternal Champions. The Eternal Champions movie doesn't currently have a release date. And yes, retro, only about 30 years late. I think Eternal Champions had 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. There was the first one, and then I think they did something later on, like might have been for the Xbox or something like that. Why? Why the choice of this movie? That doesn't make sense. You're 30 years after the fact. Nobody knows what people newer don't know what Eternal Champions is.
I was going to say, like, I could pull
Feminist
out of
fiction says, what's Sega?
Just saying, like, it was an obscure, not like rare, but it wasn't like something that people regularly talked about in the age of the Genesis.
Right.
Right? Like, this wasn't a popular game. And somebody was like, you know what we should do? Because we love throwing money away and into the fire, is we should make it off of a franchise that no one gave a shit about when it was out. Yes, we're going to do it, guys.
Well, think about it as if you're an executive at Sega. You made a gazillion dollars from Sonic the Hedgehog. It's the most successful thing Sega has done in forever. You need more of that because you got used to that giant bonus you got. So you need more of that.
Eternal Champions?
So what properties do you have that you could make into a movie?
Streets
Golden
of
Axe.
Rage.
Streets of Rage. Shinobi. You could do a Toe Jam and Earl movie and people would eat it up.
We're going to do Wish.com Mortal Kombat, okay?
I don't know. This is even worse than Wish.com. Is there like a tier below that, you know?
Timu?
Yeah, I would
Timu.
say Timu or Shein.
Crazy Taxi movie. Or you could have James Pond. Make a James Pond movie.
Make a Crazy Taxi movie that is like a ripoff of Taxi Driver. Right?
Yeah, but we made that joke already when they're doing the Crazy Taxi open world game.
Damn it.
So Crazy Taxi's taken. So instead we're looking at Eternal Champions. And also the other thing that immediately jumped out to me is that the script is being written by Derek Connolly, who apparently is the guy now that you go to for video game movie adaptation scripts, because he's also doing the Legend of Zelda movie.
He didn't do Borderlands, did he?
No, he didn't do Borderlands, but he did do Rise of Skywalker plus Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So what I'm saying is the prospects aren't looking great.
Yeah, I would have concerns.
One or two.
I mean, why not do Night Trap? Why not do a Sewer Shark movie or even a Double Switch movie or something like that? But
J-Town 0011 says Desert Strike or Jungle Strike.
Fantastic.
That game was on several different platforms, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Eternal Champions wasn't on Super NES, was it?
I don't know. I thought they released everything on both Genesis
yeah, right.
and Super Nintendo back then.
I don't think it was, because I remember being curious of the game because of the box art, and there was a scantily clad woman on it, but never played the game. She's in like a flowy. You're right. You know?
Yeah. I believe the artwork was done by Boris Vallejo, who is a very prominent fantasy artist.
How do you know that?
That's just a random trivia thought that our knowledge that's in there, that's rattling around in there. I can't tell you what 7 divided by 4 plus 5 equals over 7 is, but I could tell you that little tidbit.
Neither can I.
Yeah.
Not when you say it that fast.
But Sega Genesis and the Sega CD is what it was on for.
Again, no one gave it shit. No one cared about it. That's
right.
Just pick out the most obscure game that we can. Let's make a movie out of it, guys.
Yeah,
we gotta
and
make a movie.
honestly, this was announced, I think, before Borderlands bombed as hard as it did. So if they had waited till after, I wonder if they would have said, "Ooh, maybe not."
A wildly successful franchise can suck.
Right. What chance do we have? I mean,
Right.
then again, you don't spend 115 million making the damn thing. You have a lot better shot at getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows?
Who knows? All right. Last but not least, Jackbox wants us to answer questions like, which meat most wants to be called daddy? It's the pork loin. In its new Naughty Pack. The upcoming Naughty Pack will be released on September 12th with a retail price of $21.69. Wink. We assume the 69 is intentional. And will be available across all major platforms. The pack will include 3 provocative games: Faking It All Night Long, a social deduction game; Dirty Drawful, a drawing and guessing game, which we kind of already do in Jackbox Party; and Let Me Finish, a saucy debate style game.
I appreciate how they're marketing this, but all Jackbox games are dirty games. Let's be honest.
Well, it's up to the users.
Right.
Okay, every time we have played, we can't possibly stream it on Twitch.
No,
every single time.
no. And it's fun. It's really, really fun. But you know what's funny is, so there are certain games in there too that you can set for the settings as being like more, we'll say family friendly. So you can turn on the family friendly switch, which is where I started using Jackbox games for like company team building events. Is I figured out that you can make it so that it's not dirty. That's the only time I've ever seen Jackbox games get played like straight and normal. Right? And it's not just like a drawing of a dick on the screen.
Right, that design a t-shirt game. That's what they all are. Just dick drawings.
So I think this is funny. I like that they're just leaning into what we are already doing anyway. And I will definitely be picking this up. I got to be honest.
Sam Disfaction says, why play Jackbox party games when you have so many hentai games always on sale?
Ooh, he's not wrong.
Ryan?
Yeah. I've never actually bought a hentai game, so there you go. Oh, I take it back. Hentai World. But
Yeah, I was like, that's a lie. That's a straight up lie. Liar Game Brews strikes again.
Doubt. Press X for doubt.
Yep.
You have a point. Why play a game where that's insinuating something when you can just spend $2.99 and see full blown?
I'm not spanking it to Jackbox games.
But you are to other games?
I mean, the purpose of a hentai game, get me wrong, is
that's not a very prominent case you're making right there. I don't spank it to Jackbox party games. But
not yet, at least.
I don't know if I can leave that in.
All right, folks, let's go ahead and move on to our main topic for the evening.
All right, from The Verge, Gamescom Opening Night Live 2024, biggest announcement in trailers. Much like backpacks and lunchboxes showing up in the seasonal aisle of your local Target, nothing heralds the end of summer like Opening Night Live, hosted by Jeff Keighley. ONL is a video game showcase, much like Summer Games Fest. It's the event that kicks off Gamescom 2024, a video game expo held primarily in Germany and is traditionally a video game event of the summer. If you weren't able to tune in live, here is the biggest trailers and announcements.
All right, first up, Gearbox is planning to launch Borderlands 4 sometime in 2025. The company announced at the Gamescom Opening Night Live show on Tuesday. The game is set to launch on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. The reveal trailer was pretty mysterious, and the trailer's description on YouTube doesn't offer much in the way of specifics either. In this next installment of the definitive looter shooter, players will assume the role of a legendary vault hunter as they blast their way through hordes of enemies in search of new treasures to loot on an all-new planet, according to the description. So in other words, like every other Borderlands game.
Got a formula, we're sticking to it.
Yep. Imagine Caesar Augustus at the head of an army of Mongol warriors or Ben Franklin building the Great Wall of China. In Sid Meier's Civilization VII, such fights of historical fantasy can become historical fact. The game has new ages to experience, new civilizations to build up, new leaders to guide them, and, for the first time in franchise history, the ability to mix and match leaders and civilizations to build the empire of your wildest dreams. Civilization VII will launch on just about everything you can play a video game on February 11th, 2025, including refrigerators and toasters.
And pregnancy tests.
And pregnancy tests.
All right. Microsoft and Bethesda are officially bringing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle to PS5 after it debuts first on Xbox. During Gamescom's Opening Night Live, Bethesda confirmed Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming to Xbox and PC first on December 9th before launching on PS5 in spring of 2025. And Peter Molyneux returns to God Games.
There's a formula, and we're sticking to it.
Right. After some, let's say, detours, the veteran designer and his 22 Can studio have revealed a more traditional strategy game called Masters of Albion, an epic story of power and consequence in which you build by day and fight by night.
Secret Level is a new animated anthology series featuring a bunch of video game franchises that's coming to Prime Video on December 10th. Featured franchises include Armored Core, Mega Man, Sifu, Spelunky, and various PlayStation Studios games. Earlier in the summer, Bethesda officially unveiled Shattered Space, the first major expansion for its sci-fi role-playing game Starfield. Now we finally have a date. The update will be launching on September 30th on both Xbox and PC. Along with the date, the studio also revealed a brief trailer for the expansion, which shows off some more of its darker tone. The story is centered on the mysterious faction known as House Varun and its homeworld, where players will encounter a frightening new cosmic threat and uncover the secrets behind the galaxy's most enigmatic fashion.
One of the strangest games of the past decade is getting remastered. The updated version of Goat Simulator, which first launched back in 2014, will include all of the game's DLCs, along with new visuals and some quality of life tweaks. It's launching later this year. And ONL ended with a very brief tease for The Mafia, the Old Country, which is set in 1900 Sicily and will uncover the origins of organized crime. It launches sometime in 2025.
Yeah, before we get into it, I have to say, and apologies to people who are excited about this game, but when Jeff Keighley does the thing that we're all waiting for, is like, oh, wait, there's one more announcement. And then they pop up this like 15-second teaser for Mafia, the Old Country. I was like, really? That's how you're wrapping up the show?
Is Mafia even that big of a franchise to warrant like the mic drop, the last one to say, hey, there it is.
Red carpet, white glove treatment.
Right.
Somebody must have called in a few favors.
One of those was Peter Molyneux.
I know. So I did the thing that Ryan suggested last week where I pretended my camera was broken. So I had it up on the laptop while I was working on like my desktop, and we were chatting a little bit in the Discord, and Peter Molyneux comes out on the stage to announce his game. And I was like, I put in the Discord, like, why the hell are we still paying attention to Peter Molyneux? Like, is he lost?
Okay.
The way he walked onto stage, though, definitely made him look like he had gotten lost. Like he had a few pints and he was like, hey.
Maybe they were just being nice and didn't want to embarrass the poor guy in front of all those people.
Who is Peter Molyneux?
I was going to say, this is the point where Donnie completely forgets the gaming history you did about Peter Molyneux.
That is true.
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember it. I don't keep stuff in my head like that.
Just whoever did the cover art for the Eternal Champion. Okay. Yeah, cool.
Peter made a bunch of games similar, like Fable. He was involved in a lot of different projects, kind of like
Dungeon Keeper, Populous.
Yeah, like exactly. So in the 90s and stuff, he was kind of an icon of it, especially for the British. Yeah. And then he started getting into some really weird stuff, including creating a fictitious AI kid that you supposedly would be able to interact with utilizing your Xbox Kinect. and the whole thing was fake.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you almost could blame him for the common practice in the video game industry now of overhyping games, because
Yep.
that's what he started. He said whatever it took to get the media coverage and figured, oh, we'll build the game later. It's fine. So project after project after project of his failed to meet expectations, and he essentially became a fraud.
Oh.
And yet here he is waltzing up on the stage like, hey, I'm trying again. I noticed that he did mention, oh, we self-funded this.
Yeah. Like George W. coming back on stage. Hey, guys, you missed me? Like, what the hell is he doing here?
Yes, retro. That was Project Milo. Was the
Milo.
fake AI kid. Thank you.
Yep.
So anyway, what do you guys think about opening night live? Anything interesting?
The one that jumped out to me, I think, was Civilization 7. Been 10 years since we've had like a Civilization game. And with the way the industry has gone lately, it just seems like everything is like a third or first person interactive game in that way. So I like the fact that we're still able to make games like a Civilization game that don't necessarily have to be a run and gun or battle royale, games as a service type of game. We can still bring in those and still be excited about them. And it's okay. And I mean, to be honest with you, I think maybe my expectation would be that like finally they made it look maybe more photorealistic with Civilization. So that's what I would want to see. But it is part of the charm of Civilization 2 is to also be kind of, we'll say, not as artsy. So I'm excited for it. I think it's a game that will likely draw in a lot more people back into Civilization and those types of games. So exciting for it. And you know what? It comes out right around Valentine's Day. So if anybody's looking to catch my eye.
Wake up, babe. I got you an educational game.
Yay! Hooray!
And Antes Glitches in the chat says, Peter Molyneux is my hero. He has tricked for like 2+ decades. True. What about you, Donnie? What'd you see that looked interesting?
The Indiana Jones, I've been hyped on that one because obviously that's a favorite IP of mine. But the one thing that I saw was the Batman VR. You know as well as I do that I don't do well in VR because I get motion sick. But this is one content that I believe I would accept all ramifications of VR.
You're going to power through.
Get behind and wear the cowl and have the gloves and just beat people to a pulp and shoot the bat, the grappling hook and swing through the air and all that stuff and fly. Use my bless you, Ryan, and use my cape to fly around the city. If I get to do stuff like that, I gotta say I'm kind of all in. I still think that VR is, even though we've had VR since the 90s, it's still in its infancy as what can be achieved in it. And I'm thinking of things like Batman flying around. You're wearing an actual cape and you're in this harness thing that suspends you, where your feet can be lifted up off the ground. So if you shoot the grappling hook, you feel weightlessness or you feel like you're moving like this. I think some of that's coming. Might be another 10 or 20 years, but I'm excited to step into the boots of the Bat and into Arkham City.
I think this game has a lot of potential to just be fun in VR. I'm not going to play it because I am not going to power through. I don't think I'm capable of that. But because the bad guy is like the Rat King or whatever his name is, how many times do you think you're going to do the thing where there's rats crawling all over Batman and people are like,
Give me the heebie-jeebies.
Yep. Oh, there's lots of cheap jump scares just waiting to be had right there.
Of course. Now, I guess I could be interested in Civilization. I've never played a Civilization game. I tried Age of Empires a long time ago whenever it first came out. And as someone who loved SimCity, I thought maybe I could get into something like this. And I couldn't. So I don't know what Civilization has to offer me. Does it still fall in the realm of real-time strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, it's you basically described it's like a combination between SimCity and Age of Empires, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not going to pick that one up then.
Oh, that's a good. That's actually a better description. Satisfaction Civ is like a combination between Settlers of Catan and Age of Empires.
I don't know what Settlers of Catan is.
Oh my goodness. You call yourself a nerd and you've never played the board game Settlers of Catan?
I've never played it either.
Oh my god!
I just told you who the artist was on Eternal Champions, and you're questioning my nerd status? To be fair.
Thank you.
To be fair.
I don't go for like educational games.
I would not call Settlers
Really, because if it has even like a hint of I might learn something from this, then I'm out.
Okay, so it does. You might learn a little bit about economics. Yes.
No. That's like for super nerds. I'm too cool for that.
Oh my god. Who are you people?
We're well-rounded podcasts. That's all.
Blue, what are you into? Or what interests you about Opening Night Live?
I was like, what are you into? It's like, well, how long do you have?
I think I've already had this conversation.
What happens in the DMs stays in the DMs.
No, this is uncut episodes. So like 84 of them. So, yeah.
Okay, so I thought the anthology series Secret Level looked pretty good. Love, Death, and Robots was really good. And I don't know, it was kind of sweet when they had the director, I think he was the director of the new Deadpool movie, came up on stage because this is, as he put it, it's essentially his baby or his team's baby. And he was getting like all choked up and emotional over it. So I think that if you're a game lover, there is going to be so much here to love because it's made exactly for us. It's going to be full of the jokes and the nods and all that stuff that we love. And so I'm very excited to check that out come December 10th.
You know, and I was surprised to see Mega Man in that kind of the list. I wouldn't have expected Mega Man to be included in on that. And what I think is kind of cool is that'll provide exposure to people who've never really experienced Mega Man and the lore behind it. I mean, it's not like it's a lot of thick lore, but it's just interesting to me that was a choice. Yeah, you like it thick. So thick. But there are a lot of different IPs that are being included on this that I think, you know what, I would love to find out more about that thing in just one episode, right? Let's hear a little bit more about Armored Core or Sifu or whatever. So I think this is a really wise choice for them to be able to bring in all of these. I mean, various PlayStation Studio games sounds a little vague, obviously, but all these IPs and just, you know what, let's have a little bit of fun. And we don't have to get it mad because it's not a 10 series on just your favorite game. It's just one episode. And if you didn't like it, you can move on.
Right. That's the best part about anthology series is the really good ones leave you going, wow, I wish there was more of that. But if the rest of them just don't hit you, then you just move to the next episode. It's not like you got to quit entirely. And it's a chance to, like with Love, Death, and Robots, it's a chance to experience the work of a bunch of different creators in a short amount of time that you never had any exposure to.
Retro in the chat says, final turn in Civilization 6 yesterday. I took 3 capital cities using giant death robots against civs that had like chariots and cavalry for defense. So squashing over those kind of defensive with robots, I think could probably be a little bit fun.
Fair enough. I understand the point. The other thing, I'm not going to buy it, but I was very much entertained by the trailer for the remaster of Goat Simulator.
Yes.
Because it was just calling out remasters in the past that have been nothing but cash grabs and were terrible, terrible experiences. And they were just leaning into that, and it was hilarious. So I'm not going to buy it, but you know what? I appreciate the effort. And if it goes on sale, maybe.
Then you'll buy it. I honestly pegged you for being excited for Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
You know me.
I do.
No, that's the part of the show when everybody goes to refill their coffee. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
They're going to continue to pump that series dry. Black Ops 15 is probably going to be out whenever I pass away, or Modern Warfare 25.
How soon are you planning on dying? Because they do this every year.
No, Black Ops 6. They haven't done Black Ops every year.
Excuse me. They do a new Call of Duty something every year. I don't differentiate between the.
Oh, see, I do, because I want to extend my lifespan. That's why I specifically said Black Ops, the Black Ops series.
Okay. I feel like I just got actually'd.
Actually.
You you did get actually. So.
Actually.
Let's take a look at our top 3 new releases for the week.
All right, first up is Concord PS5 and PC. Assemble your crew of free gunners, space outlaws, and team up online with friends for a thrilling 5v5 PvP modes across the galaxy in Concord. A new team-based first-person shooter alongside a day one lineup of 16 playable free gunners, 6 PvP modes, and 12 maps. The crew of the North Star, the galaxy of Concord, will grow through regular post-launch updates that introduce new free gunners, variant traits, game models, maps and worlds, and weekly cinematic vignettes for no additional cost. Next up is Dustborn from PS5, Xbox X and S, PS5, Xbox One, and PC. Dustborn is a single-player, story-driven action-adventure game about hope, love, friendship, and robots, and the power of words. Embark on a perilous road trip across a divided states of America. Use the power of words to shape relationships with your crew and get out of trouble and reach your final destination. And no surprise here, but last is Black Myth Wukong. PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Black Myth Wukong is an action-adventure role-playing game rooted in Chinese mythology. You shall set out as the destined one to venture into challenges and marvels ahead, and to uncover the obscure truth behind the veil of a glorious legend from the past.
It's for the children.
Wukong's for the children. I just got that joke. Wukong Black Myth ain't nothing to
Apparently, from the rules and restrictions they sent out, it isn't.
All right, based off of these 3 for the week, Blue, what are you in for?
Well, so Concord being a 5v5 shooter, skipping that one. Dustborn looks like it's Persona meets Life is Strange, which I know there's a ton of people out there who will hear that combination and go, oh, it's for me, it's everything I wanted. But no, I'm good. Black Myth Wukong, I'm going to be honest, the drama around this game makes me want to take a step back from it. I just do. I don't really know what to think about it. There's probably a lot of misinformation out there, and there's probably a lot of what I'm hearing is true, but I know that online, I made the mistake of clicking on a tweet that was talking about some of the backstory on this game, and it was about 300 replies of people just brutalizing this journalist and saying, stick to the game, stick to the game, stick to the game. Nothing exists in a vacuum.
No.
So I don't think it's wrong to ask these questions, even if a lot of it, just because of the way games journalism works, it is built on sensationalism and is built on one person reports something and then everybody else picks it up. So if what they reported from the start was inaccurate, it's too late. It's spread everywhere.
Right.
But there's a lot about surrounding this game that I'm just going to take a step back, and it looks great. It doesn't look that great. So I'm going to give it some time to cook and see what happens.
So it's a big fat 0 this week?
Big fat 0 for me this week.
Okay. All right, Tanya, what about you?
Concord, I didn't even have to see the trailer to say I wasn't going to pick it up. Just based on the description alone, I'm not interested at all. Dustborn, I saw the trailer, I saw gameplay, and use the power of words. I'm tired. If I want to read, I'll read a book. I don't want to play a game and have to read all the damn time. I'm doing that with Ghost of Tsushima currently because I have it on Japanese dialogue, but English subtitles. I feel like that's the proper way to play it.
I played it in English.
Wait, Miss Subs only dubs are terrible. Oh my
I didn't want to have to read while I was playing. Like sometimes there's dialogue during battles or whatever. I wanted to just be able to hear it and not have to take my eyes off the fight.
This is my heartbreaking. Can you hear that?
You don't care.
All right, Ralph Wiggum. Black Myth Wukong, while it looks great, it looks like every other fantasy action adventure game that's out there. It doesn't interest me that much. So along with Blue, I guess I'm looking at a big fat 0 of not picking up anything this week.
I'm actually probably gonna go the same route. So that's a triple goose egg for this group for the week. So Concord, yeah, that's not really my cup of tea. But you know what? At least it looks good. I will give them that. That it definitely has some good art to it. Yeah. Dustborn, words, yeah. Donnie, I'm with you on that. Sounds like somebody would just like really, high on like, peyote. We're like, man, we should make a game. We're like,
peyote
words, yeah, that's how man. It's the power of words, man. Like, yeah. And robots. Yeah, robots too, man. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not very interested in that. Black Myth is obviously it looks like a lot of Souls style gameplay. But the first thing that came to mind when I saw it was that this looks like adult Kung Fu Panda. Right? There's just so many times that you're fighting as a monkey, you're fighting against other characters who are different animals and all this kind of stuff. It felt like adult Kung Fu Panda. But nonetheless, it's not a game that the gameplay style is just not something that I would find terribly interesting. So what I'll probably end up doing is watching people stream it though. And because I've heard there's some really strange characters that you fight, like this massive baby with spikes coming out of its head.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I would love to watch that, but I don't want to play it. So this is what I would call a Twitch game. If anybody else wants to play it, I will happily watch.
I don't know. You might have convinced me with grown up Kung Fu Panda.
My son finally having the noodle dream.
The noodle dream, yes.
All right, before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast. The show explores the history of video games through the stories and experiences of the people who lived it. This week, Bill continues exploring the cast of Final Fantasy VI by diving into the game's characters. So this week's question is, which video game's cast would make for the best movie adaptation? The only rule is it has to be a game that has not been adapted yet. Let Bill know your answer by sending him a tweet at @AGamerLooksAt40 on Twitter. And before we get your answers, I do want to let everyone know that Bill messaged me before the show. And he offered to give up his sponsorship segment this week so that we could instead shout out our friends over at Pixel Pond who have just launched their new website.
Woo! Pixel Pond!
So please visit pixelpondllc.com to check out the new site. And thank you, Bill. That was a very sweet gesture.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. And we are huge fans of Pixel Pond. I think we've sung their praises many times on the show, but great production company, does a lot of really, really great work. And if you are interested at all, check them out. They are awesome.
So let's start with Donnie.
Why me?
Just getting it out of the way that you don't have an answer.
I do have an answer, actually. And it's
okay.
a toss-up between two. Castlevania. I am 100% shocked why there isn't a Castlevania movie adaptation just yet.
Because the series was so good.
It was
the
pretty
anime
freaking
series.
fantastic.
No. I'm not. I don't disagree with you. It was perfect. It was,
I was like, we're about to throw hands here.
If you got insert the Homelander, it was perfect. Perfect down to the last detail. That was amazing. And I would love to see if they could kind of recreate that in real time with real actors and not just anime and animation. I think it could be a killer movie. The other one was Mega Man. Do you think a real world or real life adaptation of Mega Man could work? Everything that we're used to is the comic-y, cartoony Mega Man. Do you think they could actually make a Mega Man movie with cartoon or real life? Cartoon, definitely it could work, tell you the history of Mega Man and everything like that. But I don't know how it would work with a real life. You'd end up getting the box art for Mega Man, the original
That's
Mega Man.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
As the movie.
Just some guy standing there with a gun in a wacky blue suit if you tried to do it live action.
Pew, pew, pew. Yeah, what am I doing here?
That would be fantastic if they included that, though. It's like, like a Deadpool movie, right? Just like call out the most ridiculous crap because it's funny.
Maybe they'll do a nod to that in the secret level anthology.
Yeah,
the Mega Man episode. They should. They should.
Absolutely, 100%.
Another toss-up would be Ninja Gaiden, but that's neither here nor there.
Fair. Okay. What about you, Ryan?
It could have a lot of what the. We know what the next word was. Yeah. I would go either Streets of Rage. I think that would be a fantastic one. And I think we're overdue for big green mean machine. So not Turtles, but Battletoads, I think needs to have its own video game.
You just want to see what's her name and all of her.
Yes, the Black Queen. Glory. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Fine.
Streets of Rage with the scantily clad women and the handcuffs around their waist and the little biker hats and fishnets, and now you've got the black. There's a pattern here.
You're saying the quiet part out loud. Getting called out here today. But you
Blue,
see me.
what about you?
You see me.
I do. I know you. I know you, Boo. Blue, what about you? What series do you feel would get a good movie adaptation?
Oh, it has to be a good movie adaptation?
Yeah. Come on. We don't want a bad adaptation of our beloved IPs.
Well, I'm going to say Kingdom Hearts because there's 1,000 roles, so you could cast 1,000 people. Nobody knows what's going on anyway. There would just be lots of effects and fighting and weird monologues that you kind of skip past, and great costumes, lots of belts, big shoes. But it'd be a cameo fest.
Oh, I would. I wouldn't go to a theater if I knew that they were playing that movie.
All right, fine. And since you said it doesn't have to be a good adaptation, they're going to make a Hollow Knight movie, and it's going to suck.
Why would you say that?
You get what you effing deserve.
Why do I deserve that?
Well, because you said it doesn't
what have I done? What have I done to you?
It says you said it didn't have to be a good adaptation.
And then you got mean for no reason.
Choose your words carefully.
They did, however, there was a stop motion Hollow Knight short online that was amazing.
Auntie's Glitches said the Hollow Knight movie will be delayed too.
Don't tell her that, Auntie's.
It hurts. It hurts. Now you're all just being mean for no reason.
Thank you, students, for coming. Please take your seats and welcome to Professor Rybread's Gaming History 101. In today's lesson, we'll be talking about the time the U.S. government decided to look for inspiration for supercomputing needs by watching science fiction movies from the 80s. We, of course, are talking about the PlayStation 3 and the Condor cluster. So, what if I told you that inside a PlayStation 3 that you have collecting dust somewhere on your shelf, it has the capability of becoming a supercomputer? Now, more than likely, you'd call me mad. You'd say there's no way that's possible. And I would respond with an aura of smugness to tell you all you need is about 2,000 more PS3s, and that'll get the job done. So I'm sure you would say, well, that wasn't originally part of the assertion or something like that. I don't know. I dropped the mic and I walked away already. But the point being is that your PS3, if you got enough of them, it can do magical things. Now, before I jump into telling you about the Condor cluster, One thing I do want to define is like, what's a supercomputer? So I don't know if everyone is familiar with that, but
no, that definitely sounds like something from an 80s movie.
Right, pretty much, right? You know? So according to Google's AI, a supercomputer is a computer that operates at or near the highest rate possible for computers, and they are designed to solve complex scientific and engineering problems that require a large amount of memory and speed. So supercomputers are basically more sophisticated than general purpose computers and are often used for applications that involve large databases or large amounts of computation. So basically, when I think about it, it's a vanilla ice of computers. Got a problem? Yeah, I'll solve it. Check out my speed as my CPU resolves it.
You're proud of that one, aren't you?
A little bit, yeah. More than I should be. All right. So without getting too technical, though, the PS3 was, of course, released in 2006. Had actually pretty beefed up specs, right? And in particular, the processor, which was called the Cell Broadband Engine, was capable of a lot of parallel processing, which is something that you would actually find in supercomputers themselves. So the processor was co-developed, of course, by Sony, IBM, and Toshiba. And while the console was perfect for gaming, one other aspect of the PS3 that made it right for supercomputing is the ability for users to run third-party operating systems on the console. You patch the PS3 to run Linux, and congratulations, you got yourself a fraction of a supercomputer. Now, long before the U.S. government took notice, though, academic institutions and researchers began experimenting with PS3 consoles for computation purposes. And the console's affordability compared to traditional supercomputing resources was a huge draw for them. Now, a single PS3 priced at around $600 at launch offered significant computing power at a fraction of the cost of conventional supercomputers. And as an example, Dartmouth used a grouping of PS3s to study black holes and other astronomical phenomenon, which is awesome to me. Now, along with comes the U.S. Air Force, and they need a little help processing satellite data and developing AI algorithms. So, Skynet. But their budget is a little tight. And they don't exactly want to spend a whole lot of dough on what a normal supercomputer goes for. So looking at the numbers for a normal supercomputer at the time, the Air Force would have to spend approximately $10 million on just the rig itself. And that would also incur a lot more expenses in terms of power needs, where the cluster for the PS3 would actually only require 10% of the power of a normal one. So what does a supercomputer using PS3s consist of? Well, it's a whopping 1,760 interconnected consoles, all running Linux and connected via network equipment. I can't imagine what it would be like to go into that room and just see those all kind of hooked up to each other, right? And like you got the fat boys, you got the slim ones,
the thick daddies.
Yeah, right. And
I'm thinking it's not a coincidence that they tried this with the least successful PlayStation console. They're not trying to buy PS5s from scalpers to do this.
Right, exactly.
I feel
now,
seen.
Interestingly enough, though, even if they bought them from scalpers, so come to find out, it sounds like it would still be cheaper because it was $2 million is how much this whole thing cost. So it was supposed $10 million to purchase a supercomputer, only cost them $2 million to run this thing, which is crazy. So they actually unveiled this Frankenstein supercomputer kind of early in 2010 at the Air Force Research Laboratory Advanced Computing Directorate. That's a mouthful, in Rome, New York, which is like right down the road from me right now, which is crazy. The only other thing I know that's in Rome, New York is I think Enchanted Forest Water Safari.
Ooh, Enchanted Forest Water Safari.
Where the fun never stops, according to the commercial. So...
really quickly, I can't imagine that Blue is not falling out of her seat with the thought of all of those different PS3s connected together when last week she was oogling and ogling at all of the consoles in that one room and all the cable management.
Sam Disfaction in the chat already beat you to that joke.
Did they?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
He said, is that sexy as well, Blue? And I was like, it's being used for serious stuff.
Gotcha. I thought he was talking about being old.
Also sexy. So the project itself, though, was led by Dr. Mark Barnell, the director of high performance computing at the Air Force Research Laboratory. And the consoles were basically stripped down, reprogrammed with Linux, as I stated before. Now, Sony had originally allowed Linux to be installed on the PS3 through a feature called Other OS, but the capability was later removed in a firmware update because they noticed that was a bad idea generally to be able to let people do whatever they wanted with their PS3s. Now, recent videos that had surfaced up online that basically said that it ended the usefulness of the Condor cluster once that update came into play. And I really wanted that to be the case because that to me would sound so funny. They spent $2 million to get this whole thing set up, and Sony was like, and just basically turned off the capability to do so. But they were ironically enough using older models of the PS4 that happen to still support the Other OS feature. So they didn't have to do the firmware update, and things ran as they normally should.
I will say that once that firmware update happened, I totally lost respect for Sony.
Oh, yeah.
Because they allowed you to play, or they allowed you to put Linux on your PS3 and run whatever operating system you want. I thought that they were embracing the open world, the open world idea, and then they shut it down. And I would love. I think there was a little bit of recourse, like a class action lawsuit for that. And I got my $1.50, and I'm supposed to be happy.
Because most of that went to the U.S. government.
Yeah.
So the interesting part about the Condor cluster is that it was actually capable of performing 5 trillion floating point operations per second, better known as T-flops, right? Making it one of the most powerful supercomputers in the world at the time. That's right, 1,760 PS3s are the most powerful supercomputer in the world. And its level of performance was put on there with the top supercomputers on what's called the top 500 list, which I did not know existed until I started doing researching, which is a ranking of the world's most powerful supercomputers. So
this is some nerdy shit.
This is some really nerdy shit.
My nerd boxers are really moist right now.
So the problem, though, that kind of came with the Condor cluster is
I can't believe this had problems.
Yeah, right?
It seems so foolproof.
By the kind of late portions of 2010, advancements in traditional supercomputing hardware had actually increased. So the complexity of being able to utilize computational tests and all that kind of stuff, it basically made this PS3 based supercomputing approach kind of obsolete. So it really only operated for like a year, if you think about it. And so they became kind of transitioning away from that for more specialized computing that would actually offer better performance, like a specific task or scalability. So yeah, it was cool and it's a novel concept. And I think it's kind of this idea of thinking outside the box, but unfortunately it just wasn't really useful long term.
There's an episode of Invader Zim where he goes to a planet and finds out the planet is actually a spaceship, and he encounters an AI version of the race that lived at that planet. And he asks them, your people went extinct, turning your planet into a spaceship. Why did you do that? And they said, because it's cool.
I think that is such a great way to put a bow on this, right?
Because it's cool.
Right. They didn't do it any other reason besides the fact that it is cool. You're right. So to wrap things up, the use of a PlayStation 3 console in supercomputing, I think left a legacy in the field of high performance computing, just in the simple fact that it demonstrated kind of that non-traditional and more cost-effective approaches could achieve the same results that you were seeing, right? From a traditional supercomputer. So it kind of ended an era in which that was prohibitively expensive, unless you were obviously a government or something. So kudos to the team behind that and the Condor cluster of showing them how to get the same results with half the buck, right? It's like every dad out there's dream right? He goes, oh man, I bought a bunch of these and put them together, it's going to save us money.
We got a supercomputer at home. Mom and dad's dream, just different ways.
I can connect all these Atari 2600s and still achieve the same thing.
Exactly. You know what? I got it on the cheap. So thank you guys for attending today's Gaming History 101. And just a reminder, if you have any ideas for a story or topic you'd like to hear, send us a message at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, and we would be happy to feature your suggestion.
Well, thank you, Professor. Let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to episode 130 of Gamers Week podcast. And a big thank you to the Retro Game Club podcast, Love Retro BTW, and A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast for sponsoring this episode, as well as Pixel Pond LLC for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC. Watch us right here on Twitch at twitch.tv/GamersWeekPodcast, where we will record live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. Now, our merchandise is available at Walmart. And last but not least, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/gamersweek. And finally, since you made it all the way to the end of this episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice.
Is our merch really available at Walmart?
I mean, anything's possible.
I think what we should do is just get some of our t-shirts and put them in the racks.
And then go back like 2 days later, try to buy one, see what it rings up for.
100%. Let's do it.
I like it.
Yeah. We love you guys. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you later.
Good night, everyone.
Night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody, how are we doing tonight? We've got a special guest with us, Tanuki Mario, who's filling in for Blue Williams, if you can't see that on the screen. Mario, can you say hello to everybody?
Let's go.
I think Mario just got kicked in the nuts.
I'm sorry, I can't do a good Mario. I'll have to dub it over in post.
No, I think you keep it the way it is.
Yeah. Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, patrons with benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VD-STDs things, right? Make you fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
that was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.